Futures thinking in educational context. Futures thinking, a definition. Please take a few moments to read through this definition I found on the OECD website. It discusses the importance for us all to reflect on change, the impact change has, and how difficult it is to predict the future. What it means for education is not an easy picture to create. However, as mentioned in the guideline for this assignment, it is about trying to articulate what skills, dispositions and attitudes our students might need to be active participants and positive contributors to an ever-changing society. For me, when developing a view on the future and the impact this will have on and in education, I feel it is important to reflect on current understandings about education, change, and how we nurture and support our students to become effective global citizens who will be successful members of and in society. The future, my view. I would like to start with articulating what I believe should be our aim as educators for our students. This aim is to develop students who have the skills, dispositions and attitudes to be successful in the 21st century and beyond, knowing that learning is something they do. For this to happen, then firstly, the future of schools need to continue to build on working towards a truly shared vision. For schools and education to be successful, they must have a clear vision for their learners. However, for me, being visionary goes beyond this. It is about schools and leaders within them consistently striving for what Vivian Robinson refers to as a shared continuous improvement. This happens through people being reflective with their actions and measuring the success of their actions. The success of the future of schools relies on schools consistently being visionary. Secondly, I strongly believe that schools will continue to be value-based learning organisations. For me, this is a must. Julia Atkin, an internationally recognised education consultant, states that, quote, "Our drive to action, our will to act, should be driven by what we say we value and believe." End quote. I couldn't agree more with this. Our actions and decisions need to align with a set of shared core values. This ensures that educational change continues to meet the needs and aspirations of the community and the students within it. Guy Claxton, in his book Wise Up, writes that, quote, "When the future is as unpredictable as ours, when all we know about the year 2020 is that we know precious little about it, since we cannot know what knowledge will be most needed, it is senseless to try and teach it in advance. Instead, we should turn out people who love learning so much and learn so well that they will be able to learn whatever needs to be learned. That has to be the central curriculum objective of the Learning Society, not just in rhetoric, but in reality." End quote. Those comments by Claxton resonate with my own beliefs about the future, and for me the way to foster this love for learning is through developing in the students a range of learning dispositions that focus on building all aspects of each student, nurturing all areas of their learning capacity in dynamic, exciting, problem-rich inquiry contexts which make links to their world. Lee Crockett, Ian Jukes and Andrew Churches, in their book Literacy is Not Enough, discusses the 21st century learning fluencies that students will need in the future. They write about educating students to the standards of traditional literacies not being good enough, as it is independent and creative thinking that will hold the highest currency. There is more and more research coming out that we as educators must not ignore. Students need to be involved in their learning and see it as something they do, not done to them. My view on the future is just that. Schools will be a place of collaborative learning, where success is co-constructed with the students, where students set goals and work collaboratively in a multidisciplinary environment that engages them and caters for their learning needs. I believe that schools of the future will be community-focused. Schools are about people and the community. Despite many things in education continuing to change, I believe this will be one aspect that remains constant. Schools being people and community focused, as it will always be the people that matter. As John Maxwell writes, it may sound corny, but it's true. People don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. End quote. And lastly, it is important to highlight that we now live in a global society. That is a fact. With this comes a range of cultures and backgrounds of groups and individuals. New Zealand is well immersed in this environment. The future of education will see even more importance placed on building students' ability to be culturally responsive and inclusive. This will be key to their success in an ever-growing global society. What schools might look like. Schools now and in the future, I hope, will continue to be places where students are happy and having fun, and where learning is at the forefront of what they do. John Lennon speaks of his experiences as a child at school. This quote consistently makes me reflect on the important role schools have in preparing students for their future and what it means. I'd like you to take some time to read through the quote. However, when we start to discuss what they look like, I hope schools will look somewhat different to the traditional physical appearance they have today. This for me will be evidence that we as a society not only talk about meeting the learning needs of our students, but are backing it up with actions and our use of funding, investing in the creation of open, collaborative learning environments that foster dialogue and creativity, providing a range of rich resources with learning tools that cater for the digital native who has been born into a world of rapid technological advancement. When I walk into a classroom in 2030, I hope schools will see teachers as facilitators of learning and students being empowered to be inquisitive and learn through inquiry. Douglas Thomas and John Seeley Brown, in their book A New Culture of Learning, discuss at length the benefits and power of inquiry learning and make mention of how inquiry is the process by which we ask not what it is that we know, but what are the things we do not know, and what questions can we ask about them. The possibilities for our students in doing such a process is limitless. All schools now and in the future should and must understand this. Through 18 months of consultation with staff, students, parents, past students, our wider community, and using the research provided in Delors' report to UNESCO, as well as the work of Guy Claxton, Ken Robinson and Michael Pohl, we at Stanley Avenue created what we believe is our dream learner, using the 4 pillars of learning to do, learn to know, learn to be, and learn to get along with others. This consultation gave us these 7 learner dispositions. A student that has acquired and internalised the learning dispositions of communicating, thinking, inquiring, having a sense of overall well-being, understanding the importance of working with others through team player, knowing they are connected and have a sense of belonging, and have an attitude of striving to succeed. It is these attitudes and dispositions that we believe will prepare students for their future and support knowing how to act when they are faced with situations for which they are not specifically prepared." End quote. Our shared understanding continues to evolve with each learning disposition. An example here is strive to succeed. Using Art Costa's flow from awareness through to internalising is how each disposition is scaffolded. This again we feel supports students with a guide to what it means and looks like when each disposition is internalised. And then, what we can do as educators to support and provide learning opportunities to facilitate the development of these dispositions in our students. When we start to plan what educational activities might make the greatest difference or contribution to individual futures, I believe we must, as mentioned above, look at what activities will build the dispositions and 21st century learning fluencies as defined by Lee Crockett, Ian Jukes and Andrew Churches in their book Literacy is Not Enough. It is their belief that our students will need these 5 fluencies to be competent and capable in the remainder of this century and beyond. While playing out how to change our programs to build these fluencies in our students, they speak of the frustration they have with schools still currently debating over what it is our students need. Quote, "We are already more than a decade into the 21st century, but are still debating what 21st century skills are." End quote. I think the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn. In brief, activities that I believe will support this understanding and cater for these fluencies must involve students being encouraged to think and problem solve, access and critically evaluate information, work cooperatively, both synchronously and asynchronously, be creative through imagination and design, and use a range of media to communicate and present findings. After a visit to Albany High School, I was able to see firsthand the positive influence impact projects made to the learning of students. These projects empowered students to take charge of their learning and inquire into an area of interest where they were able to explore their creative side and produce an outcome that made a positive difference to the community. These students were problem solving and learning through multidisciplinary activities, while also, and arguably most importantly, building their 21st century fluencies in a rich, meaningful context that they are able to relate to and where memories are created. So, instead of a classroom like this, I believe we must endeavour to create a learning environment that sees learning more like this. If we are to succeed in this future thinking, then change needs to be led effectively. It is my belief that before any change can be initiated or led, leaders must have formed strong, positive relationships with all stakeholders in the learning community. Fullen, in his book, Leading in a Culture of Change, makes the point when referring to what makes organisations successful that it is, quote, the relationships that make the difference, end quote. As we look at what this means for the actions principals must take to ensure relationships with a diverse range of personalities are formed, we must focus on the key attributes of effective communication: listening, understanding, and initiating both professional and personal dialogue are how these relationships will be built and sustained. In addition to this, when leading change, I feel it imperative to have a strong moral purpose and genuine need for change. Fullen defines moral purpose to be acting with the intention of making a positive difference in the lives of employees, customers, and society as a whole. When using this definition, we must ask, what does this mean for principals? Simply, effective principals understand the importance of influencing, forming a direction, and pursuing ongoing improvement, and doing so with a clear moral purpose. This would be classified as a sincere commitment to improve student learning opportunities and social outcomes. Lots of literature consistently informs us that principals don't have to be a saint to have moral purpose, but need to understand there is more to it than supporting and guiding students. It is about having an unwavering sense of the betterment for students' learning and developing strong relationships with all. In addition to this, Fullen alludes to the importance of leaders striving to improve the quality of how we live together, thus looking at the leaders being in constant pursuit of improvement. Understanding change, building coherence, and developing knowledge through PD opportunities or through the involvement in professional learning communities are ways where change within a school can happen in a productive, meaningful way that minimises resistance and develops a more systemic process. Finally, I believe that for leaders to effect change, they must be a visible part of the professional learning community in the school. This is our responsibility as leaders. Finally, I would like to finish off with a few quotes that I feel sum up the importance of leaders being future thinkers and the benefits of such action and thinking. Thank you for watching my video.